So I have the best job tonight. I have the job of introducing our guest of honor tonight. And I have the honor to share an additional story that I get a little emotional about. Hopefully I won't. In early March of this year, Yvette handed me a message in our office, and she said she had taken a message from someone named Sarah from a movie Unplanned. I had no idea who was calling or why I was returning this person's call, but of course, I called her immediately. Within 5 minutes of talking to Sarah, there was an instant connection between us. We actually talked on the phone for 2 hours that day, and I think every time we talk on the phone, we talk for at least 2 hours. But the first time I talked to her, we felt this instant connection, and we felt like we had known each other for years, and it was just so God. It was so incredibly God. And Sarah on the phone that day stated that she was an actress in the movie, and she was promoting Unplanned and wanted to see if Heartbeat of Ottawa County was willing to rent out a movie theater on opening weekend. And our board decided that yes, we would do that. So after a struggle with us fighting a little bit with corporate office at Cinemark because they did not want to show the movie, we finally got them to say yes. And then we went and proceeded to sell out the very largest theater that they had that day. And it was phenomenal. Sarah was so kind that she sent us a video message that was played on the big screen before we watched the movie. And she was even kinder that as everyone exited the theater that day, we had my son's iPhone and we FaceTimed Sarah, and she spoke to everyone. She thanked them for coming. She was just so grateful. And her mom was videotaping her FaceTiming, and her mom was crying the whole entire time. She was so blessed by it.
She's crying right now.
So it was just really amazing. And she then proceeded to send that video to the producers of Unplanned, Chuck Konzelman, Carrie Solomon, and Joe Knapp, correct?
Yep.
And they were very impressed. Is that what you told me, correct?
Yeah.
That they were very impressed by that.
There's 2 more producers. I don't want to forget them. Chris Jones and Daryl Lefevre. We love them.
Did everybody hear that? Chris Jones and Daryl Lefevre.
Yeah.
She loves them. Sarah loves everybody, though, just so you know.
Yes.
And everybody loves Sarah. So shortly after renting out the movie theater, God kept tugging at me, and he just revealed to me that he wanted Sarah to be our speaker tonight for this Feel the Beat banquet. And I spoke with Kim, our director, and we kind of both looked at each other like, and she's like, "Are you nuts?" That's kind of a look, you know? And then we talked to Yvette about it, and she's like, "Oh, that would be great." And so we're like, okay. And then I'm like, God, did I really hear you right? Because you know our finances, and that's not even doable. So we got our heads together. There was no room in the budget. There was just, we didn't know what to do. So we prayed. Kim, Yvette, and I prayed. And immediately God started opening doors and showing us signs and confirmations. And I remember walking in the office one day and I said, Sarah's gonna come here one way or the other. I don't know how she's gonna get here, but she's gonna get here. And they were on board. Kim and Yvette were like, okay, let's get her here. Let's figure this out. So I immediately began seeking donations for lodging and food and entertainment and things like that for her. And then my very, very least favorite and most difficult task to do was upon me. And Kim and Yvette will tell you that I'm not very fond of doing this, but I can go to a stranger and I can ask for a donation, but I cannot go to people that I know very well and ask them for donations. But I knew I had to. So one day, I dropped my son off at football practice, and I decided, you know what, I'm gonna do this right now. I prayed, and I made a list. I said, God, who do you want me to call? Because I'm not really sure what to do here. I'm trusting you. So I made a list. And I called the very first person on the list, and I prayed before I called, and I said, Lord, give me the words to speak, and please bless this couple. I was literally sick to my stomach to call. I was hoping for a $100 donation. The friend that I called, she said, let me talk to my husband and I will get back to you later today or tomorrow morning. We'll do something. 10 minutes later, she called me. I hadn't even had a chance to call anybody else. She said, I just talked to my husband and we want to donate. And let me tell you that when God says yes, he is faithful to fulfill. That one phone call underwrote this entire event. The donors would like to remain anonymous because they want every single solitary bit of the glory to go to God. They do not want to be mentioned, and I'm to honor them, I'm not going to. They are here tonight. Can we please give them a round of applause for the honor of God? When she called me back and told me, I started to cry, but I couldn't breathe. I was like a hyperventilating type crying type thing, and she couldn't hear me because I was like, and so she's like, hello, Sandy, are you there? Did I lose you? And I finally just grunted out a noise because I didn't want her to hang up on me. And next thing you know, she's crying and I'm crying and I'm calling Jan and I'm calling Kim. I'm like, Kim, are you at the office? Stay there. Don't move. Don't leave. I was so excited. And I said, I got to tell you something, but I want to do it in person. So I went and told Kim. And we literally cried and embraced each other for 10 minutes. And we just started glorifying God and praising God in this embrace. And it was just so amazing. And I'm so thankful to these people. And I know God will bless them, but they did it because they wanted to honor God, and so I'm really, really thankful for them. Kim and I sat down that day and we worked out a budget, and we were within a few $100s of needing everything to bring Sarah here, to make this happen, to make the banquet happen, everything. We received the additional donations from JVS Garage Door and Dr. Joseph Dar. They are here tonight. Thank you to them. That filled in the gap for the expenses that we still needed. So God was faithful, as there were very few obstacles and many, many victories. Sarah and I continued to communicate regularly. We came very close. We could talk about anything. We prayed together. We prayed for one another. And God had just revealed to me that he is going to be opening so many doors for Sarah. She is so talented. She is so open to God and his heart and his love. And I can't wait to see what he has planned for her future. I really can't. She knows that. I believe that. Good things are opening already for her, but I know there's something bigger for you.
Let's cry later.
Her heart is always saying yes to God. She's humble. She's kind. She's fun. Super fun, funny, smart, beautiful, and I have come to love her very, very much. In fact, everyone who has met her these last few days feels the same way about her and her mom. Sarah asked for prayer so that when she came here, she would speak only what God wanted her to. Her and her mom came to Ohio this week. We picked them up from the airport on Wednesday, Auntie Kelly and I.
Yes.
And her mother Rose is here with her, and I love her. And I'd like you to stand. Everybody please give Rose a warm welcome. This is Rose Hernandez, Sarah's mom. Rose, thank you for raising a wonderful daughter and for sharing her with us. And thank you for being such a godly mom. We have truly enjoyed the last few days that we are here. Rose keeps saying, we're family, we're family. And we truly are. So here's the moment you've all been waiting for. I'm excited too. We're going to be inspired and encouraged by our special guest of honor. I hope you had a chance to read her bio in the programs that we have on the table. It's pretty impressive. But ladies and gentlemen, all the way from California, Hollywood, California, let's honor her in God this evening and give a warm welcome to a strong woman of faith, an amazing pro-life advocate, an actress, and more than anything, a person who radiates the joy of the Lord. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the amazing Sarah Hernandez from the movie Unplanned.
I like the podium. Oh, my Atlanta, I was supposed to cry later, not right now. But I'm beyond humbled and honored and overwhelmed by all that God has done. Is that okay? Is it gonna go anywhere? Can you guys hear me? Awesome. Sandy took kind of my introduction. I was gonna say how we met and how I was able to, get out here and just, I'm overwhelmed. I've had the best time getting to know so many people over the last few days since my mom and I came in town. Ohio has welcomed my mom and I with open arms and has blown our minds, just the love that you guys have. It's a beautiful state. And you guys, I believe truly that God prepares good works for us in advance. Ephesians 2:10 says that, and I first and foremost want you to know that each and every single person in this room, no matter who you are, whether you are serving, whether you are sitting at a table listening to this message, I have prayed for you specifically. And I am honored to be here to be able to share my story and to talk about Unplanned. But before I get to the movie, I wanted to open up tonight sharing with you just my story. I knew I wanted to be an actress from the time I was, oh my Lanta, I think 9. I can remember watching like The Lion King and forcing all of my cousins to play with me. And I had to be Simba, of course, even though I knew I was a girl, but I would force them to play with me. And just, I've always had that creative mind, and that's something I believe that God put in me before I ever said yes to Him being my Lord and Savior. But at the age of 14, I decided that I wanted to pursue acting. And I remember my parents came up to me. I have a sibling, Elizabeth, and she had a sweet 16. And for my 14th birthday, my parents decided to ask me to start preparing financially for it. They're like, well, do you want, a sweet 16? And I was like, I have to wear a big poofy dress. They were like, yes, you do. And I was like, okay. And I remember asking my dad, well, how much is that gonna cost you, Daddy? And he said, you wanna know how much the entire day is gonna cost? I said, yeah, for one day, what are you gonna spend on me for my 16th birthday? And he said, about $10,000. And I was like, can I save you $1,000, Dad? And he was very surprised. And I told him that I had looked up an acting school and I found out the cost and I wanted to go, and it would cost $9,000 for me to go. So instead, for my 14th birthday, that's what my parents blessed me with, because they were so proud that I kind of went and thought, one day $10,000 or a lifetime career for $9,000, let's do this. So of course my parents put me into an acting school, and within a few months I excelled and got the attention of a Disney Channel casting director, and I auditioned for her and did a very dramatic monologue, and I caught her eye, and she pulled me aside and asked me how serious I was about acting. And I told her, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I have no plan B. And she said, okay, well, I will be back in a few months, drop some weight, Yes, she did say that. But I took it as a challenge, and there was nothing that was going to stand in my way from my dream and I said, okay. So 3 months later, she did come back, and I dropped 45 pounds in 3 months and did the same monologue for her, and she was blown away and ended up taking me to Hollywood with her. And she became sort of my mentor, and we started my early career. She helped me with my first agent, my first manager, and my first manager, she started America Ferrera's early career, and my agency was one of the top agencies in Hollywood, and they believed in me and supported me. And she as well had such a strong belief that I was going to do wonderful things in Hollywood that she even gave me my first role in a major motion picture. I don't know if anyone here has heard of the Bratz movie, the Bratz dolls. It was my first one-liner. I was a greenie girl, so like a hippie girl, and I was super passionate for renewable energy, and I went hardcore into Hollywood. And by the time I was 19, I had a resume that blew my mind, because there are some people that leave homes, that leave countries, that leave families and go to Hollywood and never have the opportunities that I've been given. I've worked on shows such as The Mentalist. I don't know if any of you know that show. Also, I've worked alongside Lindsay Lohan, Janine Garofalo, Cheryl Hines in a movie called Labor Pains. And I was sort of starting to really have a successful career. I was, building my platform and getting my name out there, working really hard, and everything kind of started to change at the age of 21. I started questioning life, and at 19, I kind of started questioning life all the way from 19 to 21, and I was not planning at all for Jesus to interrupt my life. I grew up going to church. My mom, God bless her, always kept me and my sister in church. She was like, I don't care if you're in your pajamas, you're gonna go worship the Lord. And I was like, okay, I don't care, I'm going. So I always thought I was good just going to church, and I would live however I wanted to. But one thing for me was, I was so passionate for acting, I've always had a love for it, that I knew I had no backup plan. In high school, I remember telling my counselor, Mr. Piccolo, I don't need to go to college. I'm going to be an actor. Have you not heard of Ashton Kutcher? He's never been to college. I'm going to make it. And he was like, okay, wow. So I had no backup plan. And I just remember having no peace in my life. And even though I was pursuing Hollywood, on the outside it looked like I had everything I could ever want. I'm hanging out with this famous person, I'm on this show. People look at that and they see, wow, she's got it all together. This is what she's living her dream. And it's wonderful to live your dreams, but I was going to bed every night empty and wondering and questioning life. And at 21, everything changed for me. I heard the gospel for the first time. I heard about Jesus and actually understood it. And I remember the day I said yes to God. All of that peace, unrest and lack of peace in my heart was answered in 3 Bible verses. I said yes to Jesus because he, first and foremost, I feared death, very much so. And I always grew up kind of with that fear. That's partially as well why I pursued acting, was because I knew 10 out of 10 people die. Not everyone makes it out alive. So I was like, what greater way for people to remember me than film? I have to be an actor. I had my whole life planned out what I wanted to do. And then Jesus happened. And I gotta tell you guys, I experienced a peace that I had never felt before. And it changed my life. I heard the gospel, said yes to God, and immediately went back into Hollywood, super high for Jesus, and found very quickly that's not accepted. And I started, rejecting auditions, and I was getting, all these wonderful, in actors' world's eyes. I auditioned, I remember, for a show called Desperate Housewives. Do you guys remember that show? Oh yeah, I auditioned for that. And actually, I was brought in by producers. I was wanted specifically for a role. Me and a couple other actresses, they brought in, and they really liked me. And I remember I was not given a script. I was a newfound Christian, got to the audition, got the script, read it, did the audition, did fantastic, and walked out going, what did I just say? Oh my gosh, I don't want this role. And the role was to play opposite of Eva Longoria. And my agents, they really wanted me to take it. They were like, Sarah, it's opposite Eva Longoria. You have to say yes. But I had no peace. And I was like, well, the role, it was to play a lesbian. And it was to play Eva's daughter as she grows up. This is the choice she makes in life. And I just was not comfortable with it. And I found myself saying no to a lot of roles. A lot of things were coming across my way, and I just had no peace, and I was getting so frustrated because I thought, Jesus, I said yes to you, and you're giving me all these big, wonderful opportunities, but now I have to say no to them? I don't understand. And I started getting really just uneasy, and I was unrestful with the way things were going because I was so used to just saying yes to anything in Hollywood, and now I started rejecting things and feeling God tug on my heart to leave. And I wrestled with God for about a year, and my mom knows. We've been in several arguments over it because moms always want what's best for their kids. They know, she knew this was my dream, and everyone looked at me like as if I was sabotaging my dream. I said yes to God, and then I'm sabotaging my dream. What's going on? So I remember one day my agent called and sent me an email first, and I seen a breakdown for a role. I was gonna have a producer session for a movie called The Hangover Part 2, and producers wanted to bring me in for a role, and I read the breakdown and was like, I don't wanna do that. I don't think I want that. And I remember my agent called me, and he was very upset with me. And he was like, Sarah, it's a producer session, you have to go. Producers want to see you. They ask for you, you're going. And I was like, you know what? No, I'm not interested in it. It doesn't seem right to me to go in and read for something I'm gonna say no to anyways. And he was very upset with me, and he was like, Sarah, what's going on? Why are you doing this to yourself? You've had all the success, and now what's going on? And I had to share with my agent that day that I became a Christian, and I didn't want to be represented or do certain roles that would represent me in a certain way. And his response to me was, Sarah, faith scares people. And I remember saying, I disagree with you. Faith does not scare people. You're putting your faith in me that I'm gonna walk into this audition room and nail it and make you money. It's not faith, it's the object that we put our faith in. That's what scares people. And I put my faith in Jesus and I live it out. Oh boy, he was not happy. No, that did not go over well. And so here I am at this point of my life and in my early career, and I just feel like everything's falling apart. And I'm trying to understand how God is at work. It just feels like everything's going bad. And I remember one day my mom and I, we had a conversation on the road to an audition. I was auditioning for a show called Glee. And I really at this point had no more peace to be in Hollywood. And I remember I went through a real deep depression as well, because I knew that God was calling me out, but I admit I did not have strength to leave Hollywood. I did not have the strength to say no to my dream. And I remember my mom, God bless her, she said, Sarah, you can do this and still be a Christian. You can pursue acting and still love God. But what my mom didn't know was God was ripping an idol out of my heart. I had put acting above God and pursued that so hard because I wanted to be remembered. I wanted to do it for my name. I wanted it for my own selfish reasons. And when Jesus came into my life, he was turning things right side up, the way that they needed to be. And I was struggling to let go. So I remember my mom, we got in a bad argument that day. She wanted to kick me off the freeway. She literally pulled over and said, get out. You know, sometimes moms got to give some kids some tough love, right? You know, get out, just leave. But God was just working in me, and I felt like I was going crazy. And I remember one day, I just felt I was going to church, I was seeking God, I was so high for Jesus, and then at the same time, I just felt him telling me to leave Hollywood, and I wouldn't do it. I didn't have strength to leave. I was still pursuing it, thinking that he was blessing me, but really he was calling me out. And I remember I got down on my knees, October 2010. And mind you, I do need to share this. I got saved August 2009. I'm gonna get to that date later because it's gonna blow your minds, I promise. But October 2010, I remember I got down on my knees in my bedroom, in my home, and I looked up out at my window, and I looked up to the sky, and I cried, and I wept, and I told God, I said, Lord, I don't understand what you're doing, but I have no peace. I can't pursue this anymore, but I know I want this with every fiber of my being. I know. Oh my gosh, are you awake? I said, I know that I can do this, that I can go and have a successful career. I know everyone tells me I'm talented. I've been on this, I've done all my resume, Lord, look at it, as if he doesn't know it already. But I remember crying out to him that day and just saying, Lord, I don't have strength. I cannot leave. And I remember praying, but nevertheless, not my will, your will be done. I'm being honest with you, God. I don't have strength to say no, so I'm giving it to you. Your word says that nothing is impossible with you. If you want me out of Hollywood, I'm giving it up to you, Lord. I surrender. And it took about a year, but during that time, I ended up signing another 3 and a 5 year contract with my agency and my management. And I prayed, Lord, you're not bound by any human contract. There's nothing that's impossible for you. You can get me out if you want me out. I give it up to you. And exactly 1 year later, 1 year of torture and torment, because I knew I was doing something I was not supposed to be doing. October 2011, both my agency and my management dropped me. They decided that it was best for us to separate, and that we just go our separate ways. You know, they felt that I didn't want to be an actor. They understood that I had no peace. They were like, it's just not working out. We want to work with people that actually want to be here. So I ended up losing everything. And I remember I had so much peace that day. I knew that I made the right decision, and not everyone agreed with that decision because I was throwing away 8 years of my hard-earned work, all for a God that I could not see. And I remember the struggle. My family, some family members didn't understand what I was doing. And not even my mom at first. It took a couple years for her to kind of see what God was doing. But God was at work. And I remember going right into the wonderful world of retail. Has anyone here ever worked retail? Yeah. Oh my Lanta. God really humbled me. And I remember I got hired first at a little store called Bath & Body Works. I worked there for about 6 months, selling lotions to the glory of God. It was wonderful, giving hand massages, just loving on people. And everyone knew. They're like, are you a Christian? I'm like, yeah, I am. And it was wonderful. And 2 years, the first 2 years, I was blissfully content in Christ. And I knew I made the best decision for myself that I possibly could have made. And about 6 months into working at Bath & Body Works, I applied at a little Christian bookstore called Family Christian Bookstores. Have any of you guys ever heard of them? I see a lot of heads nodding. I'm gonna try to take this off, can I? Oh my gosh, so much better. So I started working at a little Christian bookstore called Family Christian in Orange County, California. And I loved it. It was the best time of my walk with God because I was in an environment where I could freely talk about Jesus. I could serve people, I could love on people. And I just remember, though, thinking to myself, wow, Lord, from Tyler Perry to this. I guest starred on a show. I worked with Tyler Perry on a show called House of Pain. And it was the best 7 years of my life. I ended up leaving Hollywood and going to work at this little bookstore, ended up becoming a manager within a year, and started just serving God. And I remember thinking to myself, Lord, not my will, your will be done. I'm trusting you. And I remember for about a year or two, I could not watch movies. It was really hard for me not to go to movies, not to watch television, not to talk to anyone who was involved with movies, because I felt like God had clearly shut that door and I wanted to honor him, and it was really hard for me. So you can imagine when I started watching Christian movies. I remember watching God's Not Dead. Have you guys seen that movie? Yeah. Yep. And I loved it, and I was like, wow, this is actually really good. Lord, what's going on here? I don't understand. How is it that you could take me out of somewhere? Why didn't I stay in Hollywood and just be found by these guys? Like, there could be Christian actors. I don't get it. I'm in a little bookstore. Okay, Lord, I get it. I'm trusting you. I'm just not going to question you. I'm just going to trust you. And I started watching more movies, and I thought to myself, wow, if I'm being really honest, we need some better actors. Oh my gosh. I was like, Lord, I have all this training, like professional training, like literally, Lord, from Tyler Perry. Okay, Jesus, I don't understand it. What didn't hit me was when I surrendered my career to God, I remember that he put on my heart a verse. The day, October 2011, when my agency and my management dropped me, I literally have this written in a journal. God gave me a promise. In the book of Job, I believe it's Job 5:14, it says, he wounds and he heals. He tears down and he builds. And God put on my heart that day that he had tore down what I had built for my name and my glory. But one day he would build me up and I would honor him with it and not myself. And I started watching these movies and started thinking to myself, okay, Lord, I don't understand what you're doing. I enjoy being here, but I started having this desire again to act. And this is about 5 years of me working at the Christian bookstore. And I started having this desire again that I didn't understand. I didn't see how God could give me a desire for something he clearly took me out of. And when I say desire, I mean like fire. Like I would watch these movies and be like, I want to do that, Lord. Like, I don't understand. Like, this was my dream. This was my goal. I said yes to you. And I'm so discontent in my job. I love serving people, but this is ultimately what I want to do, Lord. I don't get it. And I remember one day in my little bookstore, I grabbed 2 movies in my hands. I had a movie called War Room and God's Not Dead. And I looked on the back of the film, on the movies, and I wanted to know who made them. And I read names: Chuck Konzelman, Carrie Solomon, Daryl Lefevre, Alex and Stephen Kendrick. And I was like, man, Lord, these are people that love you, that make movies that honor you. And we need better actors. So, Lord, Luke 1:37 says, for nothing shall be impossible with God. And I said, get me to these guys, Lord. I want to honor you. I don't care how you do it. I don't have an agent. I don't have a manager. Please get me to these men if it's your will. I'd like to honor you, Lord, and use my talent for your glory. For 2 years, I prayed faithfully with my mom and some of my customers who knew me, who knew my story. And one day I had some friends call me from Atlanta, Georgia. Every year I serve, if I can, at a faith-based foster ranch called the Goshen Valley Boys Ranch. And I had a couple call me because the Lord put me so heavy on their hearts. They were like, Sarah, how can we pray for you? And I just remember saying, I don't think I need prayer. Oh, wait, yeah, just kidding. Christians, we always need prayer, right? I said, I have this desire to get back into acting, but I don't I don't know if this is from the Lord or if this is me. Like, I don't want to disobey God because he said no so many years ago. And so I'm just really struggling, and I can't see how God could send me back somewhere he clearly took me out of. And my friend Larissa said, well, Sarah, what about Moses? And I said, well, what about him? She goes, well, Sarah, Egypt, hello. And I was like, okay. She's like, yeah, well, like the Lord let him be a son of Pharaoh, then he chose to suffer with his people, and then God calls him in the desert with the bush, and then sends him to get his people. Like, God can send you back somewhere he took you out of. And I was like, oh, right, okay. Well, still, thank you for ministering to me. Can you just pray for me that God gives me a sign and not you? And she was like, okay, I get it. And we talked so much that night, and they encouraged me, but I still needed a clear sign from God that I was supposed to go back into acting. And literally, you guys, 2 days later, I walked into Family Christian bookstores. Was opening the day like normal, opening registers. I had our bank deposit in front of me. I had money in front of me. And I open on my phone Facebook, of course. Everyone opens Facebook, right? It's the first thing you do when you wake up, right? Or it's Instagram now. I opened my phone and checked my Facebook, and I seen an article that someone posted from MSNBC saying that my entire company closed down and I lost my job. Yeah. 2 days later, after my friends prayed for me, I had money in front of me, I was prepping our deposit, and I literally went, oh my gosh, 2,000 people just lost their jobs because I needed an answer from God. Oh my gosh. But I remember getting down on my knees in my bookstore and crying and worshiping God because I knew what I was supposed to do. I knew God was working on my heart for 2 years, giving me a desire again to go back into Hollywood, and I didn't understand what he was doing. And praying over those movies really actually meant something. I didn't realize what I was doing, but God knew. And so now I'm hired by a liquidation company. My boss confirmed it. She was like, yes, the entire company closed down. Tomorrow you'll be hired by liquidators. We'll start the process of closing the store. And I was like, this is great. I'm going back into acting. I'm so excited. Yes. And well, everyone is like super sad that they lost their jobs. I'm like, yes, I'm jumping for joy. And it was like the best time of my life ever. I'm like, putting stuff out like, I'm going to be fine. This is going to be great. It was so interesting too. It felt like a funeral because every single customer was like, I'm so sorry. And I was like, guys, I'm fine. You don't get it. God answered my prayer. All I know is I'm going back into acting. And about 2 weeks later, one of my customers came in. And I had seen her before, but I didn't know who she was really. And at that point, I stopped ringing people out because it was genuinely like a funeral, the same conversation over and over again. Oh, I'm so sorry for your loss. I'm so sorry for you. And I was like, I'm fine, guys, really. God answered my prayer. I'm going back into acting. I know what I'm going to do. And I just felt compelled to ring this woman out. And, God orchestrates every single one of our steps. You think you're going to Walmart for one reason, but God's got a plan for you to be at that Walmart. You think you came out here tonight to enjoy a good meal, but God has a plan for you to be here. He orchestrates our steps. And this customer of mine, I just felt compelled to ring her out. I grabbed her and I said, ma'am, let me help you over here. And we started talking. And she was like, oh, I'm so sorry that you lost your job. And I was like, no, it's really okay. God has a plan for me, and I know what I'm going to do. And she's like, well, what are you going to do? And I said, well, I used to be an actress. So before I said yes to Jesus, I did some acting. And she's like, oh, really? What kind of acting? And I said, oh, some film and television. And she was like, no way. And I said, yeah. She was, well, I'm an actress. And I said, oh, okay. Well, everyone says that out here in LA. So have you done anything I would know? And she goes, well, yeah, you sell my movies on your shelf. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm listening. And she and I just started talking, and she held up her arm and her hairs were standing up. And she goes, I wasn't even going to come here today. I was standing in the women's section, and I was looking at books, and I'm like, Lord, why am I here? She's like, I think you're why I'm here. And I said, okay. And she goes, can I take you out for a cup of coffee? And I'm like, yeah, actually, it makes so much sense to me because I've been praying about certain things. And she's like, I have to help you. So a couple of days later, we met for some coffee, and I promise, guys, it's about to get really good. So we met for some coffee, and I showed her my, it's called a demo reel. Like, it has all my resume, my work that I've done on different shows, and I showed it to her, and she's like, oh my gosh, you're actually really good. Like, why did you stop? And I told her, well, because I got saved, and God told me to give up my career. He put it on my heart, and I just wanted to seek first God's kingdom and his righteousness, and he told me everything else would be added, so I was just obedient. She was like, wow, well, I have to put you in contact with some people, and I'd really like to bring you to this film festival, this Christian film festival. And I'm like, awesome. So guys, think about this. Within less than 2 weeks after I prayed with my friends, I lost my job. I met this Christian actress in my bookstore that God led me to after I got saved and gave up everything. And within 2 weeks after that, so within a month's time frame of praying, I was on a film set serving and volunteering on a Christian short film. My mind was already blown. I was like, Lord, you are so real. You are so good, and I cannot deny what you're doing. On that film set, her line producer was observing me. A line producer, my friend Colleen would be so proud of me right now because she's a line producer, and she's like, yes, we don't get enough credit. But they are in charge of the crew, everyone who works. And I volunteered that day as a set PA. I didn't want to get paid. I just wanted to be there to serve because I was so joyful that God had answered my prayer and brought me back onto a film set. And she was observing me, and she goes, I like you. Who are you? I don't have to tell you to do anything. Who are you? What do you want to do? And I said, well, my name's Sarah, and I'm an actress. And she's like, you don't want to be in production? And I was like, no. And she goes, okay, are you green? And I said, no. Green means, are you new? I was like, no, I have credits. And she goes, do you have a demo reel I could see? And I said, yeah. And she goes, send it to me. So I sent it over to her, all my work, and she watched it and came back to me and said, oh my gosh, you're like a legit actor. Why are you serving crewmen Chinese food? And I said, well, Jesus said whoever wants to be greatest must be the least. So I'm just here to serve, and I'm joyful to do it. And she was like, I really like you. Oh my gosh, I'm going to keep you around. She and I became really good friends. And one day, about 6 months later, so keep in mind, this is less than 8 months after me closing my bookstore and God answering my prayer. She calls me one day and says, hey, I have some friends who are casting for a movie. I can't tell you what the movie is, but I can tell you who's making it. And I said, okay, well, who's making it? And she goes, have you heard of God's Not Dead? I literally dropped my phone. And I said, why are we still on the phone? Send them my stuff right now. Oh my gosh, I used to pray over that movie. And so she ended up letting me know that they were casting for this movie. And she asked me one question, are you pro-life? And I said, like, am I for babies not being killed? Yes. And she goes, okay, just wanted to know because, and I'm like, what's this movie? And she's like, I can't tell you what it's about. I just can't right now. And I was like, okay. So she sends over my demo reel, some new pictures, and my resume to the very men who I prayed to work with. I was literally dying. I got down on my knees, and if that in and of itself was not proof to me that God is real, that God exists, that he has a plan, that nothing is wasted, and I just remember crying on my knees again. The same way I cried on my knees surrendering my career, I surrendered this email that we sent over to them. And I already began to praise and thank God for the work that he had done and just said, Lord, as long as they know I exist, I'm fine. But Lord, whatever this movie is, I want you to be honored. I want you to be glorified. Lord, thank you for answering this prayer. 3 days later, I got a phone call, and they wanted to know who I was. They were so excited. They were like, who is this girl? Where did she come from? Why wasn't she in our lives before? And they really liked me. And I was so happy about that. Still didn't know what the movie was. And about a month goes by and I don't hear anything. And in Hollywood, that means you didn't get anything. So I was like, nothing's gonna happen. Okay, at least they know who I was. No, they really wanted me. And I remember one day I got an email and I opened my phone, looked at the email, and it said from Chris Jones, Sarah, like they reached out to me and they sent me 2 roles and they wanted me to put myself on tape. I remember waking up that morning, half asleep, and I just started screaming. I scared my poor mother. She was like, what happened? And I'm like, Mom, the God's not dead. People know who I am and they want me, Mom. And everyone in our household was like, they thought I was dying or I saw a spider because I'm really dramatic. But it just blew my mind that they had watched my tape. I literally prayed to work with them and they wanted me to audition for their movie. They wanted me to send a tape. Well, 15 minutes later, I got a phone call instead. And they said, hi, Sarah, my name is Chris Jones. I'm one of the producers on this film. Just kidding. Can we take you out for a cup of coffee? We just want to meet you. And I was like, I will quit my job. You don't understand. Yes, I will meet with you. They were going to be in town one day in LA and they wanted to meet with me. And I remember we met at a little Starbucks in Pasadena, California. And you guys, I cannot begin to tell you, man, to see God answer a prayer so specifically in my life, the fact that I could not have made this up, I could not have written my story, I could not have thought about, like, God is so real and he's so intimately involved in every detail of our lives. And the fact that he gave me a desire to act, he gave me a passion for it. He saved me and set me apart and took me on a journey to work at a tiny little Christian bookstore where I would end up selling the movies of the very men who are now calling me to take me out for a cup of coffee. It was blowing my mind. We met at this Starbucks and they walked in the doors, and to have the very men that I would flip over their movies and read their names on the back of movies now coming to talk to me, I knew this was the hand of God. Still did not know what the movie was about. I just knew that they wanted me. And we sat down and they started our meeting off with, you can relax, the role is yours. Talk about God preparing something for you. Talk about God, you not having to strive for it, you not having to push for it. Talk about God tailor-making something that matches the desire of your heart. To have them start off our conversation with that, I was literally like, I felt Jesus all over that Starbucks that day. And immediately they offered me a role in this movie. They, said, go ahead and pick 2 of the roles. We feel like you're more this person. And I still did not know what the movie was about. And I was like, this is great. What's the movie? And they said, oh, well, have you heard of Abby Johnson? And I said, no. They were like, okay, well, she has this book, and they started telling me her story. They started telling me about her life. And I was like, wow. I had never heard of her before, but you guys, I have to tell you something. They started to, tell me about Abby, how she used to work at a Planned Parenthood. She was a super strong pro-choice feminist, believed in a woman's right to choose, and she ended up assisting on an ultrasound-guided abortion and watched a 13-week-old baby fight for life in the womb. And within a week, she left Planned Parenthood. She was Planned Parenthood's 2008 Employee of the Year. And she left Planned Parenthood after watching that 13-week-old baby fight for life in the womb. And within a month, she won her court case against Planned Parenthood and ended up becoming one of America's biggest pro-life activists today. Like, when you say Abby Johnson, I describe her like this. I said, when I say like fast food chain, what do you think of? McDonald's. Did you guys say McDonald's? Yeah, I say pro-life activist, pro-life movement. You think Abby freaking Johnson. That's who she is. And that's how big she is. And so they're telling me about this movie, and they warned me so heavily. They were like, you probably will never work again in Hollywood. And I looked at them and said, I'm a retail manager. I don't care. Like, I have to do it. And I began to tell them like my journey. And I said, I used to be an actress and then I got saved, and started telling them everything. And their hairs were standing up. They said that 1 minute into watching my demo reel that the Holy Spirit told them, that's your girl. She's going to say yes. She's been praying for you. So they knew. I did not audition for this movie, you guys. I'm one of the only actors in the film that didn't audition. They literally handed me a role that day and said God told them that it was meant for me. Everything began to make sense to me at that moment. I knew that God set me apart. He gave me a talent. He gave me a love to act and pulled me out of Hollywood, set me apart to be a part of telling this pivotal story. And I remember telling them that day, to say no to you guys would be to say no to the very existence of God, because I literally prayed to work with you. I held your movies in my hands. So I don't care what you ask me to do. I don't care what I have to lose. God took me out of Hollywood once before. It all makes sense to me. My answer is yes, I will be in this movie. There were a lot of people that said no out of fear of being one of the faces of the pro-life movement, and I knew that God called me to be a part of Unplanned. It made so much sense to me, all that he had done in my life, the journey he brought me through to bring me to this movie, to tell this story for such a time as this. They asked me to pray about it for 2 days, and I said, well, I've been praying about it for 2 years, so my answer is still yes, but nonetheless, I'll respect you and I'll pray about it for 2 days. And during that time, God gave me a verse to say yes to them with, and it was in the book of Esther. I believe it's Esther. I don't want to butcher it. I'm just going to tell it to you guys because you probably already know what it is. Perhaps you were put in the palace for such a time as this. And that's the verse that God put on my heart to say yes to. When I thought about everything, I was like, wow, everything he's brought me through, all the people he's put in my path, how they found me, there's no way I could have made this up myself. I know I'm supposed to say yes to this. This is literally the answer to the desire of my heart. I have to say yes. And I did. I ended up calling them one morning 2 days later out of faithfulness to honor them. And I called them, and they were all in a meeting together. They all picked up, all producers and the directors. And I said, I did what you asked of me. I prayed about it for 2 days, and this is what God said. To say no to you would be to deny the very existence of God. I was set apart for this, for such a time as this. I have to do it. And they said, okay, Sarah, let's make a movie. And we did. We ended up filming Unplanned. And I ended up doing research about Abby Johnson. And this is a really cool story. I know Sandy really wanted me to tell you guys this. The first time I ever met Abby Johnson on set, I was in my full Planned Parenthood, my full uniform, my scrubs, everything. We were at lunch, and someone told me, Sarah, Abby's here today. Do you want to meet her? And I was like, yeah, I have to meet her. And she was sitting across from me at a table with her back towards me. And I don't know if you've ever had someone staring at you and you could feel their eyes staring at you from the back of your head, and you're like, what? Someone's looking at me. But she turned around and looked at me, and I looked at her, and we kind of made like a nod, like, yeah, let's get up. And we got up and started walking towards each other. And I knew that moment that God had set me apart to tell her story, because she walked up to me, and that day she decided to wear a shirt, a red shirt, and it had black with white writing on it. And it said, perhaps you were set apart for such a time as this. Abby Johnson hugged me and thanked me for being a part of telling her story. And I told her, you have no idea what I've been through to get to you. I'm so honored and so excited to tell your story. And we filmed this movie. It took us 32 days. It was the most rewarding thing I've ever done. And guys, I've done some pretty fun, awesome things. But this movie, why I've been flown out here tonight, I want to really encourage you guys that we all have a desire. We all have gifts. We all have talents. We all have things that God has put within us to do. Some of us are blessed with talents like me, like acting. Some of us are blessed with time. Some of us are blessed financially, and we can give to put on events like this. God gives us things to use. And I could never, ever I will spend eternity thanking God for what he's done in my life and the honor it has been to use my talent for such an important message, that life is valuable, life is precious. God sees, he knows. And making this movie, I don't know if you guys remember when this movie released, what was going on, what's been going on in the world. This movie, God has really released at such a pivotal time in history. And I feel that God has set me apart. That's my timer to stop, but I'm not gonna stop. Are you guys okay with me not stopping for 2 more minutes? Okay, is anyone crying yet? I see some tissue back there. Yeah, okay, good, that was my goal, just kidding. What's been amazing is I could not have made this up. I have been so honored to be a part of this movie. You have no idea. There were certain things that I desired as an actor. I remember I told you guys I wanted to be remembered. I had no idea that God was gonna give me an opportunity to be a part of the most influential film of our day, the most controversial, powerful film. We are literally America's most controversial film of 2019. We just screened in Canada, across theaters in Canada. On October 25th, we're releasing theatrically in Mexico. We're also releasing in New Zealand, Australia, Hong Kong, the Middle East. This movie has gone around the world. There's been so many amazing people that have given their talent to make this movie. And I'm a firm believer that God, he sees and he knows, and I know that Unplanned was released at this point in time, and he's calling us to action. Unplanned was made in hopes that other people would see truth, that we would show people that life is valuable, life is precious again, that this movie would inspire people to value the very breath in their lungs, that the things that happen, the way life comes about, no one is an accident, no one is unplanned in God's eyes. Life is so valuable. And I have so much that I want to say, but I think my time is done. I'm not sure. But you guys, I'm so honored that I got to be here with you all tonight. And I really want you to know that you're blessed with things. You're blessed with time. You're blessed. Some of you are blessed financially. Some of you are blessed with talents. I know Sissy back there is a singer. She loves to sing to the glory of God. God gives us things to use. And I want you guys here tonight to know that you can get involved as well. That you are not just anybody. Your life is valuable. Your voice matters. Your hands, arms, feet, and legs, God can use to touch women and men who have been affected by abortion. Also, some of you are blessed to be able to give financially. God can use that. Nothing is wasted. And I'm just so honored that the Lord has worked in my life to set me apart to tell this story. And I had no idea that he would one day provide and fly me out to little Port Clinton, Ohio. Oh, my Lanta. I tell people, if God were to sit me down after he saved me, if he were to sit me down and say, okay, Sarah, this is my plan. I'm gonna save you. I'm gonna take you out of Hollywood. You're gonna work in this bookstore. You're gonna pray over these movies. If he would have told me everything I was gonna do, I literally would have been like Sarah in the Bible. That's my name. I would have laughed and said, God, you're crazy. But you guys, it has been an honor to be here with you tonight. I pray that my story inspires you, that you can get involved in this movement, that you matter, and nothing is impossible with God. you can do something tonight, partner with Heartbeat. I don't know if Kim's gonna come up here now. You are? Come on up with me. Come on up. I'm so grateful for you guys.
I'm so
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. I didn't think I was gonna be able to talk for 45 minutes, but I did it. I did. Wow. Does anyone need to stretch? Does anyone need to stretch? Okay, someone stretch back there. I feel way better.
Thank you so much for coming here all this way, sharing your life, sharing your mom, and just sharing your story with everybody. It's awesome, incredible. Thank you for your service to the Lord and for all that you're going to do in His kingdom, for His kingdom.